So, how is he?
Oh, you know, same old Ethan. Being really cool and all that, doing all these crazy stunts. He's in a helicopter at the moment. He's probably got to do something with that. And yeah, it could possibly be the best mission. You know.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's possibly the best one.
Yes, it could be. Nick here, and welcome to my review of Mission Impossible Fallout, or Mission Impossible 6, or MI6. Or, well, in Roman numerals it'd be VI. Actually they've got MI6 in the film as well, briefly. And one of the characters works with them, so that's a nice little nod. Anyway, so this movie is, well, as you know, it's the 6th Mission Impossible, and this time we see that a terrorist group, I've forgotten the name, but I might put it down below later, that a terrorist group has kind of formed from the ashes of the Syndicate from the last film, Rogue Nation, as even though they've got their leader, Solomon Lane, the organisation has still been pretty active. And another organisation has kind of also been born from the ashes of what the Syndicate formerly was. So, and they've acquired some plutonium that they could use as bombs, nuclear bombs, and blast out some cities. Or, as we later find out, cause a pollute some water that would cause lots of death in China, Pakistan and India to just to start, probably just as a starter to their downfall of world governments and leaders, presumably. So the plot sees Ethan Hunt and his team trying to get the plutonium. However, the mission goes wrong early on in Berlin. Or was it Venice? Anyway, so the mission went a little bit wrong, so now they have to try and recover the plutonium by meeting up with a mysterious woman known as the White Widow and trying to somehow get it through her. And it turns out that the people who have the plutonium, that she's kind of in between the two groups, kind of like organising the switch, if you will. The middle people. So what the people who have the plutonium want is Solomon Lane, so the IMF have to give them that. And eventually Lane goes off with the villains with their plutonium. They kind of lose him. And so they have to go out and find Lane and stop the plutonium and get the plutonium and stop the villains in the little country of, what was it? It was a small little one. I think it's fictional, actually, because it's supposed to be between India, Pakistan and China. Oh well. Yes, it was one of the others. So, yeah, so that's the plot of MI6. Also, the trailers were making it look like the CIA was sending Augustus Walker, the CIA assassin, out after the IMF, because after the mission failure in Berlin, the IMF would be trying what they can to do all they can to get the plutonium back and restore order. But from the trailer, it looked like the CIA were going to be trying to get the plutonium back themselves and would kill anyone in their way. And it's even kind of hinted at a little bit on, so I was worried that they're going to do the CIA chasing down the IMF again. It's like, this would be the second time in a row after the previous film where they needlessly tried to hunt down Ethan Hunt. I don't know, that was my biggest complaint about the last movie, which I recently watched. Oh, not rewatched, I've only seen the movies once, besides the third one, which I haven't seen yet. But yeah, that annoyed me to hell, especially as I had to sit through 5 Jason Bourne's films doing that. Good grief. Choose a new Bourne filmmakers, just to go a different angle next time. So I was glad, but it turns out the CIA actually don't go after the IMF. There is a point where it looks like they might, or there's a point where Ethan is supposedly the bad guy, or is being made to look like the bad guy, and Augustus Walker, the CIA agent, does have concerns that he is the bad guy. However, it's revealed that Walker is actually the bad guy, and he's the one who's behind all of these incidents. He's the real villain, and they kind of catch him out. However, the director of the CIA wants them all to come back in because she doesn't trust anybody. But Walker's already had men infiltrate the CIA, so they get rid of the ones who were the agents who weren't his men, and shockingly they kill off Alec Baldwin's character, who was great in this movie. He wasn't so good in the previous film until he found out the the IMF were actually knew what they were doing. He trusted them as soon as he found out the truth about the syndicate. Before that, he was a bit of a dick. In this movie, he was a lot better. Alec Baldwin gave an even better performance. So I was actually quite sad when he was killed off, because he was such a good character in this movie. And a huge improvement to his character in the previous film. His development in the previous film, until he found out he believes the IMF. Because, yeah, it wasn't so great in the first film until that point, and now in this, and he became very good, and then in this film, he was fantastic. Even in the scene where he had to say he was having to bring in Ethan, Baldwin did a great performance, and then he was actually in on the plot, unlike last time, but this time he actually was in on the plot. And they even say, "Welcome to the team, Mr. Secretary." That was great. I was actually looking forward to seeing him as part of the team, but sadly they killed him off not too long later. That was a shame. I would have liked... maybe in the next film you could have done that. I would have liked to have seen him actually on the team, doing some good stuff. Maybe he sacrifices himself to save the day, or you kill him off in the next film after some great chemistry with the other members, but... oh well. But he had and his death wasn't brilliant, but it did show that he trusts Ethan and the others, so that was good. And yeah, sad he's died. But yeah, and at the end of the film, I can confirm that Erica, the head of the CIA, does trust Ethan and the team now after they save the day, and she actually comes and saves Ethan after his victory. When he's on the rock, she comes and gets him off the rock and gets into the hospital. And then at the end, there's her voiceover where she's speaking to Ethan about how she now trusts him and the IMF and how they're important to the world. So that's good. She could be the new secretary. I mean, we had Alec Baldwin became the secretary of the IMF in the previous film, only to be killed off here, which was a shame. But hopefully, maybe Angela Bassett's character could now be the new secretary. We haven't had a female IMF secretary yet. So this would be good. This is a different type of secretary to the ones who's on a desk and typing up on the computers. This is like Secretary of State, for instance. It's a big position. So, maybe she'll be the new secretary of the IMF, or maybe just an ally of them in future films if there's more. Hopefully there will be. I would like an MI7. Yeah. Although, yeah, I wouldn't mind it if it didn't continue the story from 5 and 6, because this one, number 6, actually kind of continues the story from the last one, which isn't usually the case. Each film is a sequel to the first film, but there hasn't really been a continuation story, apart from all the Ethan and Julia stuff in the fourth film being referenced. There wasn't really a continuating story in a way until 5 and 6, if you like, and now 6 again has some of that stuff from number 3 that's referenced, and even comes a little bit important later on. But I wouldn't mind if number 7 actually went back to something like 2 or 3 and just did its own standalone eventually. Even 4 was pretty much standalone. But unlike 4, they wouldn't be hunted down by anyone. They wouldn't be thought to be the bad guys, the villain, be betrayed or anything like that. But basically, number 2 was pretty much the best one not to do that. Number 2 didn't have... just let the team do their mission. That's it. Number 3, I haven't seen it, but I've seen a catch-up of each of the five films, and that did have Hunt get arrested for some reason. I'll probably find out when I watch the film. But besides that, there wasn't that much on that one either. But yeah, but 1, 4, 5, and I thought they were going to do it with 6, but they didn't quite get to it. They were being chased or hunted down or something. So 6 came close. I think with the coming in stuff in the middle of the film, and the fact that the CIA could be coming after them in the second half, that was a thought that they could be happening. But it ultimately turned out that was actually not really a worry, so I didn't have to worry about that. So I won't have to worry about that on rewatches. Yeah. As for cast and crew, Tom Cruise, once again, brilliant as Ethan Hunt. Simon Pegg, brilliant as Benji. Vic James, I think it was, or Rames. He's great as Luther. Luther's the only other character besides Hunt to appear in all of the films, although in number 4 he only got a cameo towards the end, and I don't think he was credited. Same for Julia in the film. But he does appear in all the others as a main character. That's great, and Benji has been since the third one. We also get the return of Ilsa, played by Rebecca Ferguson from the last film, and Solomon Lane, played by Sean Harris, again from the last film. And as I mentioned, Alec Baldwin as the secretary from the last film. No Brand, Jeremy Renner's character from the previous 2 films. I would say this may be due to Avengers duty, but firstly, he wasn't in Infinity War, so all his stuff is probably going to be Avengers 4. If he is in that, he probably will be the set photos. And secondly, Chris Pratt, who's in both of them, and Guardians 1 and 2, he did Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. He was the main character in that. He had a lot of screen time in that, and as well as Guardians 2 and the 2 Avengers films of this year and next year. So, I don't know what the excuse was for not having Brand in this film. Was it Jeremy Renner wasn't available? Or did they just not fit him into the story? Personally, I think they could have got him into the story, so I'm betting it was more the fact that Renner was unavailable. And they probably just gave his stuff to Luther, Benji, and maybe even to Hundley, the secretary. To be honest, it actually would make more sense if Brands got killed off in this film. It would have been a bit more emotional, personally, I would have thought, than Hundley. I think Hundley should have had one more film before being killed off, if that was going to be the case. It's not like Tom Wilkinson's character one in the fourth film. He was just there for 1 or 2 scenes, and we didn't really care about him. But Hundley, in this film, he was really great, and also kind of got a bit more respect for him when he decided to become the secretary of IMF and restore them. So it would have been nice to see the character go through one more instalment and kind of grow as a character and become maybe a fan favourite, perhaps. But ultimately, that won't be the case. But could happen to Angela Bassett's character, perhaps in future films. So long as they don't repeat what they did here. I mean, I don't want her to be killed off in the next film just because that will be repetitive, and I was worried they were going to do that. I mentioned my worries about them being hunted down, all that. That would be repetitive, especially if it's like the 5th film. So, thankfully, it doesn't repeat the 5th film. It's actually a really good instalment. And all the actors that I mentioned, plus the new ones, they've all been really great. Vanessa Kirby's really great. Fun fact about her character, I picked up on this. I think she said she's the daughter of Max from the 1st film. I think so. I think that's what she says. That her mother, it kind of implies it, certainly. So if it's the case, and her mother was Max from the 1st film, that is a lovely and really great Easter egg. If people spotted that, and if this is the case, that is a great Easter egg. Really great. Yeah, and her brother's also a pretty good character, I suppose, in a way. He's actually quite funny in some cases. I think the standout performance of this film, besides Alec Baldwin, is, and also Tom Cruise, of course, is Henry. Damn it! It's Superman. Not Carver. I've forgotten his name. Hang on, I'll be back in a second. Okay, it was Henry Cavill. Actually, remembered it was just before I looked it up. But and I double checked. Yeah, Henry Cavill. He does a really great job as the villain. Especially, he actually does appear to be actually an ally at the start. Maybe with some concerns a little bit later on, but he does seem to be an ally. He seems to be a great friend. Well, not friend, but helper, helping out a bit. Although I was worried, as the trailers did seem to me, oh, he's going to go and hunt down Ethan later on. But that turned out because he turned out to be the villain, as opposed to just repeating, as I said, repeating all the other stuff from previous films. Yeah, he does have his worries that Ethan might be the villain, but it is just part of his plan to frame him. A bit like in the 1st film when the villains try to frame him. Although this time they give a bit more explanation to why Ethan would want to be betrayed. As in, all the other times he's been betrayed and all that, how much he would... Walker states himself, how much can a man take before he snaps, along those lines. That was a really good scene, and that was great in the trailer as well. So, yeah, and it also brings up a good point about if they did do more of that repeating stuff I was worried about they would do, then Walker would come up with a great point about it. As they didn't repeat that, it's just maybe just saying that's what it could have been. I'm glad they didn't go down the route, as I've said several times. And then it's great that he actually turns out to be the villain, and the actual proper villain, as opposed to hunting them down villain type of person. No, the proper villain. That was such a good twist. I liked that. That I didn't mind the fact that they'd been sort of friends just before. No, that was actually maybe helped with the villain dynamic, because I know a lot of people hadn't been exactly happy about the villain dynamic in the 2nd film. I think the 3rd one's villain may have been a letdown, so I've heard. In the 4th one there wasn't really much of a personal connection, nor in the 5th. I think the closest before this one there were actual hero-villain tension was in the 1st one. So this is probably the closest since then, and it does a really good job with that. And yeah, it's pretty great, and the twist works so well. And how it's revealed that they already know. That was great. That was brilliant. Again, harking back to the 1st film, that was brilliant. And yes, that was good. Even Hunley got involved in that bit, as I think I may have mentioned. And then it's Walker who eventually gets Lane out of there, and that's when that leads to Hunley's death, and then to team, including Ilsa, now having to go to the fictional Asian country, unless it's not in the location I was looking for. And then that's where the climax of the film takes place. The last act and the climax. Also, Julia returns in the last act, so conveniently being there. Well, Walker is apparently her guardian angel, so he probably brought her there so she could be killed along with Ethan's team if they tried to intervene, destroying basically everything he holds dear. And she actually becomes really useful with helping Luther disabling one of the bombs. She becomes very helpful. So she's not just there for a cameo like other scenes in the film, including the start and another, which was a dream sequence, and another dream sequence later on. No, she actually becomes quite important to the story, at least in a way. And it's nice to see her doing some good stuff. Like I said, I haven't seen the third one, but I know she had a big part in that one. And then she's pretty much been undercover for a while. But, so yes, having her doing the stuff here would be even great. And I suppose after I've seen the third film and rewatched this, it will probably be even better. So, if I'd seen the third one, and that might have made the situation even better. But as it is for me at the moment, it was already brilliant, so it's maybe made even better, but we'll see. This works really good. And yeah, the final fight is very good as well, and Walker's death. Ouch! Oh, that was so good. The hook that was holding on to the helicopter, clipping off the rocks and eventually flying down into his head and putting him down with the helicopter. That was so good. And I will say another thing about this climax. There is a lot of tension. I actually felt that some of the characters wouldn't make it out alive, especially Benji and Ilsa. It looked like they were going to be killed before the bomb even went off, if the bomb went off. And it also looked at the last couple of seconds that they might not even succeed. And there is that point where you think, oh shit, Ethan didn't make it on time. They blew themselves up. But it turns out he did make it on time. And they survived, so they live to die another day in a future film, if it's on screen. And so yeah, everything works out fine. And Solomon's arrested and sent back to MI6. And everyone's happy, I suppose. Apart from Lane, cause... Never mind. Oh well. Next time, buddy. So yeah, that was it. That was Mission Impossible Fallout. What am I going to give it? Well, I was on the verge of 9 or 10. I wasn't quite certain. In the end, I decided it should be a 10. 10 out of 10. It might even be the best installment of the series. So, Mission Impossible Fallout gets a 10 out of 10. Yeah, as I said, I think I would give numbers 2 and 4, both of them would be 9 out of 10. So I really enjoyed them and thought they would have been great. However, with this one, I feel like the story was pitch perfect for the most parts. I think the only thing is that I was worried that they were going to do some repetitive stuff. And that was hinted around in the middle, but it turned out actually not really. And instead, we actually got some nice callbacks to previous films instead of repeating other stuff. So yeah, that's really great. And so, you're a Mission Impossible fan? Fallout will probably be your new favourite. If not, it will be in your top 3, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if some people weren't so keen on this, but it looks great. Apparently, it's a pretty popular one. Radio Times has it 5 stars. All the others, apart from 3, are 4 stars. 3 is a 3-star. They might change that, but oh well. Yeah, this was great. So, that's Mission Impossible Fallout. Stay tuned for my Mission Impossible ranking of all the films, but the third one, I'll make that an honourable mention. So, until then, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. Oh yeah, I'm confused. Okay. Odd. Okay, I'm just gonna do this a little differently by kind of being both characters at once. Okay, here we go. So, how is he? Oh, yes, it probably could be.